if you're not doing that as a business owner, you're definitely leaving a lot of money, productivity, and growth on the table. That's literally going to cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. If I want my business, my relationships, and my physical health to be the best it can be, then I've got to look into blood work and gut health and these things and start taking my nutrition supplementation and training seriously.
This is Inspired Founders, a podcast that helps you find your true north in business and beyond. I'm Priscilla Skippington, a soul-led entrepreneur passionate about sharing the wisdom of world-leading business minds who have walked the path before us. From their toughest challenges to their greatest triumphs, we explore the stories that have shaped their journey and defined their future. Together, we discover the resilience and redemption it truly takes to achieve success, make a lasting impact on the world, and live a life that is truly fulfilling. Hello, and welcome to the Inspired Founders podcast with me, Priscilla Skippington. Today, we have Dr. Daniel Kirkbride joining us. He is a Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine and one of Australia's leading health experts and coaches. Hi, Daniel. So great to have you.
Amazing. Thank you for having me on.
So talk to me a little bit about, you specialize a lot, or you talk a lot about gut health and what that means to have good gut health. Can you share a little bit of why you've decided to specialize in that and how that really helps us as business owners?
Yeah, for sure. It was kind of by accident, to be honest. It's funny how I ended up in that scenario. So, I mean, my original background was strength and conditioning coach and then an osteopath. So I used to work with people predominantly with pain, injury in the gym, and gut health wasn't really anything I even considered back in the day. But then through working in a clinical practice for over, sort of 5 years, started to notice a lot of patterns with patients where they'd be coming in with pain or injury or dysfunction. But then when we peeled back the layers and started asking a few more questions, we start to find, issues with their gut or inflammation or problems with their immune system and all those kind of things. And that's sort of what led me to accidentally fall into that realm. And then the last, 3 years or so, I've really spent a lot of time looking into how the gut affects different systems. And, obviously applies to business owners, it applies to everyone, but especially if you are a business owner and you value high performance, productivity, mental clarity, focus, attention, energy levels, all these things, your gut's a massive piece of the puzzle, and we can definitely dive into the science of it. But yeah, that's sort of how it came about.
Yeah, so share with me and our listeners a little bit about that background story. Where did it all start for you? Why has this become your passion project? Why is this your purpose?
It came from experience, to be honest, and personal experience. So back in 2020, when I was, I guess, a traditional osteopath and worked mainly with pain and injury, I went through my own health concerns. So I had really, really bad energy, really, really bad chronic fatigue, really, really bad gut issues. I had parasites, candida, bacterial overgrowths. I could barely go to the gym. I've always been someone who loves the gym, high performance, been an athlete. It got to a stage where I could go to the gym and do about 2 sets of, shoulder press, not even heavy, and I'd feel like I'd run a marathon. And it was at that point I was like, all right, something seriously wrong. Like I can barely get out of bed. I was doing everything back then too. I'm sure people can relate to this. Like I'd get up, it would take me half an hour to get out of bed. I'd drag myself to a shower, hope the cold shower would save me. The cold shower would give me a boost for 5 minutes. Then it would be caffeine. That would boost me for a bit. I'm not ashamed to say, probably relied on lots of things like modafinil and Adderall and Ritalin and things like this, trying to get through my day. And nothing was really working. Saw a bunch of doctors. Your blood tests are normal. Nothing's wrong with you. I don't feel normal. What's going on? Well, your blood tests are fine, so it must be in your head, or take this medication. So I kind of went in circles on my own. Then the second part of that journey was, all right, well, doctors are useless, so let's try naturopaths, let's try holistic health coaches. And then that's a whole rabbit hole in itself of, try this protocol and try this supplement and try this plan. And, you leave the room with 2 bags of supplements and thousands of dollars later, and you're still kind of confused and you're still sick and tired. Now you're just broke and sick and tired. So, it was probably a proper 18-month experience of me going in circles and not getting the results that I wanted. And, I was bloated, I was puffy, I didn't look good, didn't feel good, didn't have energy. It was affecting my businesses, my relationships. Didn't help that COVID was on during the time. That's great for your mental health as well. And that really led me down the pathway of functional medicine. And it was first of all, just selfish reasons, trying to heal myself because I felt like shit. And then
Yeah.
after I went through my own journey and healed myself, I was like, wow, if I'm going through this, how many of my patients are going through this? And I don't want anyone to go through that experience like I had to, because it was 18 months of pain and it was very expensive, and affected every area of my life. So yeah,
Mm.
since that point, it's been my mission to help those people who they're going in circles. They don't feel heard, they don't feel seen, and they're looking for that structure to get back to peak performance.
Yeah, amazing. So, talk a little bit about, I mean, we're all about stories here at Inspired Founders. So, talk a little bit about that health journey of, that 18 months and what you tried and what you found were those successful or key moments where things started to pivot or change for you.
To be honest, the thing that there was a lot of moving parts, but I'd say the key thing or two key things would be number one, understanding stress and understanding there's more than stress is more than just emotions and how you feel. There's a lot of different areas of stress. And I have this concept, which I can share in the show notes after we're done, called the Wheel of Health. And it's eight areas of health, essentially. It's based off the concept of the Wheel of Life, but eight key areas or eight key pillars of health that we need to look at if we want to be optimal. And one of those eight key pillars is stress. And within that pillar, there's eight different types of stress on the body. Most of us only consider one, which is psychological, emotions, financial stress, relationship stress. But there's seven other areas that we don't even consider, and most of these areas are playing a massive role and havoc in our life. So a lot
Mm.
of the times I find myself and lots of people that come to work with me, they have the mindset is always, what can I add and what can I do more of? But
Mm.
99% of the time, it's what can I subtract? What can I take away? What can I stop doing? And that's going to be the thing that pushes the needle forward the most. And it's not going to resolve the issue, but it's enough to kind of get your body to take the foot off the brake and allow your nervous system to get into a state where we can actually heal. So
Mm.
we can definitely dive into that more, but that'd be number one, which is a big number one. And then the second part would be functional blood work analysis. So what is functional blood work analysis? It's essentially blood work. You get your blood test taken as per normal, but the key difference is when you get your blood test done, and this was what I was saying before, when you go see a GP, 9 times out of 10, they tell you everything's okay, everything's normal, everything's within ranges. And 9 times out of 10, you don't feel normal. And because if you did, you probably wouldn't get the blood test done in the first place. Usually 9 times out of 10, people get a blood test. They're like, hey, I don't feel too well. Let's see what's going on. So to me, that was a massive revelation because I was in that same boat. And then I took my blood test to a functional medicine practitioner and they're like, dude, you're fucked. Like all these things are out of whack. And I'm like, I don't get it though. The doctor told me that everything was fine. How are you telling me everything's wrong? Like, is this guy trying to sell me snake oil or like, is this legit? Like, and if he is, and at this point I've spent so much time, money, I was desperate. I'm like, all right, dude, just help me. And then when it actually works, to my surprise, I was like, okay, well, like, how does no one know this? And why is this not the normal thing? So yeah, so functional blood work analysis and understanding stress and the key areas of life were probably the two things that had the most amount of influence.
Yeah, amazing. And I know now you do the functional blood work. That's obviously a huge part of your business, what you do with your clients. Can you tell us kind of,
Mm,
the doctors aren't seeing all these things or they're not aware of them or they're not drawing attention to them, but
mm.
people like yourself are, and you can see that there are issues. Like, what are the most common things that doctors are missing that you tend to see?
I think the question behind that, which would give more context, is why has it been missed in the first place? And I think this comes down to, so the way it works when you get a blood test taken, imagine we want to create an average, yeah, and to create an average, you have to have a large enough sample size. So let's say we get 100 people and they're all going to get their blood test taken. We're going to take all the results of those 100 people and we're going to create a reference range of normal, high, low, you're in the middle, yeah?
Mhm.
So that would make sense, but then think about it. In the average population in 2024, we're not the healthiest population. There's the highest incidence of chronic diseases, metabolic diseases, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, obesity, and the list goes on. So it doesn't really make sense to me where it's like you take the average of a sick population, create reference ranges, and then there's someone like you or me going, hey, I want to be like dialed in 10 out of 10. I'm going to compare my blood test to someone who's 60, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, overweight, obesity, eats really bad, etc. So that's the number one problem, is like you're not really comparing apples and apples. You're comparing apples and bananas. The second thing is the reference ranges are so big. So, for example, there's a marker called white blood cells on a blood test, which is your immune system.
Mm-hmm.
And that should sit between 5.5 to 7.5 in functional medicine. If you look at reference ranges on a medical blood test, you pick up your blood test you got from your doctor, you'll say something like 4 to 11.
Oh.
It's like, that's huge. So if you got your blood test taken and you were sitting at 4.5, I'd be like, hey, man, we're a bit out of range here. Like, what's going on? Why is your immune system suppressed? Is there inflammation? Is there infections? Is there poor gut health? Are you really, really stressed? Let's do something about it and proactively for the next 6 to 12 months, make sure that we get back to baseline. Versus if you got 4.5 and you took it to a doctor, it's like very low, but it's not outside the ranges yet. So we're going to wait till it gets to 3, which is probably another 18 months, 24 months down the track, where the problems got significantly worse, your symptoms are significantly worse, and now it's going to take significantly longer to reverse it. And that's where people will usually have this pattern where they are having these, decreases or increases in a marker, but because the ranges are so normal, they think everything's fine. Then one day it's like, oh, this just came out of nowhere. I was healthy, 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 healthy. And then one day I've got Crohn's disease. It's like, I don't get it. 2 weeks, I got my bloods done 6 months ago and I was fine. It's like, but you're just looking at we're looking at it the wrong way through the wrong lens. We looked at it through the functional medicine lens. We would have picked up 10 years ago that you probably had bloating, you probably had food sensitivities, you probably had, your skin flared up when you ate a certain food, you had painful periods, you had, really bad anxiety and stress. All these things were happening, but you were just not paying attention until 10 years later, where, I don't know if you ever heard the
The brick
analogy.
gets you, or the truck gets you.
Yeah, the feather, the brick, and the bus. Yeah,
Yeah.
the feather's bloating. The brick is maybe IBS, and then the bus is ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, bowel cancer. Yeah, sounds dramatic, but it's like that happens over a 10, 15-year period. So,
Right.
yeah, essentially the main problem is it's the assessment tool is we're using a shit assessment tool, and the assessment tool is also based off a population you probably don't want to compare yourself to. So in functional medicine, we compare your blood test results to a much smaller reference range, which is based off, what we see in people that have optimal health, not based off the average of the population.
Okay. Wow, that's really insightful. And I'm sure so many people, like I know I didn't know that.
Mm,
So that's really, yeah, that's really insightful and it makes so much sense. There's certain people in my life who have had similar experiences where they've experienced, bloating or discomfort and or lack of energy, and it's been ongoing for years. But they continue to go to doctors. They
mm,
don't get, there's no kind of, oh, this is what's wrong with you, or we see any issues. It's like, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, until it's not, until it's the
mm.
truck or the bus. And then it's like, yeah, no, something more is going on here. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like it's probably also the second thing I'd say is like reductionist versus holistic. So like what I mean by that is like generally speaking, if you've ever seen, a medical practitioner, they read your bloods, it's usually like they'll go through it and systematically go like this marker, high, this marker, low, this marker, high. And we kind of like zoom in and we look at it very in isolation, which you're missing a lot of the pieces of the puzzle. The key with functional medicine is we're trying to zoom out and look at integration, which is like, all right, well, this might be high and this might be low. And based off those patterns and your symptoms, the most likely diagnosis right now is this versus
Mm.
just being like your B12 is low, take B12. Your iron is low, take iron. This is high, take this. It's like, but why is B12 low and iron high and, my inflammation levels higher? Why is my immune cells low? If we start to piece together the patterns, we can go, well, high inflammation, low immune cells, deficiencies in B12, vitamin D, etc. Most likely you've probably got an infection or leaky gut or, some sort of problem. And then we can start to go a top-down approach of like go after the root cause versus this plug-in symptoms. Because that was probably the biggest issue I had with naturopaths and natural doctors is it was the same problem. They just used herbs rather than medicine. But it was like the same thing. It was like, all right, the doctor gives you a medication for the rest of your life. The naturopath gives you a supplement or a herb the rest of your life. But both of them are kind of missing the big piece, the puzzle, which is, top-down approach.
Yeah.
And obviously this is practitioner dependent. Like there's lots of good doctors, lots of good naturopaths out there, but the principle should always be root cause approach, connect the dots, connect the puzzle, and you never treat the disease, you treat the person in front of you because the person's the biggest factor. Everyone's unique.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I think that's so important in so many areas. The person in front of you is unique. So let's
Mm.
bring it back. Let's bring it back to business owners and entrepreneurs because I know that's most of our audience here. And let's talk a little bit more about stress and anxiety. We all suffer from it, degrees depending on what the day throws at us, and
Yeah.
what the week throws at us. But how much does the stress that we have on ourselves as business owners really impact our health? And what are some things we can do and be really conscious of to lower those stress hormones and lower those side effects of the anxiety that we sometimes feel in business?
I think the first thing to understand is there's a massive correlation between your gut health and your brain health. It's not to say this is the only thing. Obviously, I'm not a psychologist, and there's other factors to depression, anxiety, and mental health. But when it comes to understanding the connection between the two, it's definitely not something we can ignore. For people listening, dopamine's like drive, motivation. A happy hormone makes us feel good. Low levels of dopamine have been implicated in things like anxiety, depression, ADHD. So pretty big one there.
Mm.
And serotonin, really important for regulating our emotions, our tolerance to pain, our bowel movements. So constipation, diarrhea is a big one with low serotonin. And serotonin also helps us produce melatonin, which is really, really important for sleep. So poor sleep, waking up at night, feeling really, wired at night and struggling to go to sleep, both those things can be related. So straight away, it's like, well, if you're not factoring in your gut health, and looking at that as a factor, if you are someone that has poor productivity, poor focus, poor energy, poor memory, poor sleep, poor digestion, anxiety, depressive symptoms, those kind of things, that'd be the first place I'd look. And when you think about it, though, 9 times out of 10, if you go see a doctor with those symptoms, the first thing they do is give you some medication. They don't ask you how's your sleep, how's your diet, how's your stress management, how's your hydration, how's your movement. Yeah, so that's a huge factor and something we need to consider. And when it comes to stress, I think it mainly comes into the main thing is awareness. And I think I'll definitely share the 8 areas because I think having an understanding of that's probably the biggest thing I find. And when I speak to people about those 8 areas, they usually look at me like I have 2 heads and they're like, what do you mean? So if we can go through those 8 areas, the first thing I do with people is we do a bit of an audit. We go, all right, well, which of these 8 areas right now are contributing to stress in the body?
Mm.
And which ones can we easily mitigate and remove in the next 24, 48 hours? Like, what's something we can do straight away that's not going to take a lot of time, money, and energy? Because a lot of it's usually just unnecessary fluff that we have control over and autonomy over. It's improving your nutrition. It's changing potentially what products you're using. So household products, skincare products, cleaning products, things that are full of chemicals, going more of a low tox lifestyle, improving the quality of our food, improving the quality of our water, improving our sleep hygiene. All these things sound pretty simple, not sexy, but these are the things that would be the foundations to start with. Because what people don't understand is when it comes to stress, it's not like your brain has different boxes for different stresses. It's not like you have a relationship stress box and then a training stress box and then a financial business stress box. You've just got one box and one bucket, and stress is going to multiply from different areas. So it's not just as simple as meditating and doing breath work and things like that. Obviously, those things are going to help to reduce the stress, but it's really just this balancing act of, well, I can either reduce how much stress is coming in from those 8 areas, or I can keep the same amount of stress come in and just hope that I do breath work once a day and it will be enough to deal with it. What I would suggest would be, let's look at, you know, cutting down how much is coming in, and let's look at ways that we can, remove some of that stress with, breath work, meditation, journaling, all those things that we know are really good for us. And if you get that balance right of, well, addition and subtraction, then over time we should start to notice a positive trend. But
Mm.
without knowing what your stresses are and what your stress strategies are, then you're kind of shooting in the dark and hoping for the best. So it's like business. You need to do an assessment, you need to have a plan, strategy, and then be consistent. But most business owners you speak to have a business plan, they track their finances. When I ask them if they track their health, they track their food, they track their stress, they're like, yeah.
Sometimes when I remember to, when I have time to. Yeah, amazing. And yeah, and I'm sure so many of us can relate to that in that, like I even know I do try. I try and be very conscious of, well, especially stress for me. I've really worked on mastering that. I would say the last few years. Just
Mm.
in that, I mean, I don't know your 8 areas, and I will talk to you more after the podcast about that. And we'll put it up for the listeners to see in the show notes. But removing stress is really key. And I think sometimes we don't realize we can quite easily from different areas of our lives.
Yeah.
Not everything, but there are definitely things that we put on ourselves that we don't need to put on ourselves. That we often
Mm.
just get ourselves in a loop of worrying about things that haven't even happened yet or that aren't even going to happen. So
Mm.
yeah, I think that's a really important reminder.
Yeah, 100%. I think yeah, a lot of it's simple. A lot of stuff that that you need to be doing. I think it just comes down to specificity. And if you're so busy and you got a million things to do, I think sometimes it's easy to get caught up in the social media of you need to have this 45-minute extravagant morning routine. I think you can be quite effective in 3 to 5 minutes a day
Yeah.
if you know what the strategy is for you and it's specific to you. Like anything, you can spend 3 hours a week burning, spinning your wheels on a business plan, or you can spend 15 minutes of, targeted work and your business can grow. So I think it's
Yeah.
the same thing. But if there was one thing that I could give people listening so it's tangible, because yeah, for sure I'll share that thing with people and they can look at it. Because yeah, probably 2 hours to go through all the 8 areas and stuff. But the main thing would be we have this nerve which connects our brain to all our organs, and it's called our vagus nerve. So our vagus nerve is part of our parasympathetic nervous system. So super simple explanation is you got sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight and flight mode. It's that stress response.
Mhm.
Great in the short term. If you want to deadlift really heavy, you want to run really fast, you want to scream at your partner. You want to run away from a tiger, which doesn't really happen very much in 2024. That's our stress system. Yeah, so it should be turned on in a period of stress, help us deal with the stress, and then it should turn back off.
Yeah.
But if you have a really, really poor stress tolerance, or you have a lot of stresses in your life, I order a latte and I'm meant to have almond milk and they give me full cream milk, and I'm pissed off because they got my coffee order wrong. Yeah, it's like you get a dodgy email. I'm in stress response. So it's like if this is happening 20 times, 25 times a day, you're just constantly bombarding this stress response. And this part of our nervous system is very inflammatory. It's very catabolic if we spend a lot of time there, which means we'll start to break our body down. We'll start to get more inflammation. We'll release more cortisol, which is a stress hormone, which has a whole host of negative effects on a chronic level. So we don't want to spend a lot of time in that system. It should turn on. I always say it should be turned on for 45 minutes to an hour a day when you're training, because you want to be training hard. Yeah. The other 23 hours of my day, I want to be parasympathetic. I want to be zen. I want to be like a monk. Yeah. So to access that part of our nervous system, this is what we call the rest and digest, or feed and breathe. Digest that food, make babies, relax, digest that food, etc. So this is where all the good things happen. This is where you build muscle, you repair tissue. And it's not just muscle. This is if you had a soft tissue injury, this is where your body's going to repair tendons or ligaments or discs, or the gut lining or the skin, or all these areas in our body that need to heal. They don't heal from thin air. We need to be in our healing state. So to access this, the easiest way to access this is through our breath. So straight up right now, if you were to breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds and do a sharp exhale and repeat that 5 times like this. So we're going to go do 5 of those for me and tell me how you feel. Are you ready to sleep?
How many do I need to do? 5? I lost count.
Ready for a nap or ready to fight me?
I feel more energized.
Yeah. So
yeah, okay, good. I didn't want to say the wrong thing.
That would have been awkward when cut the call.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's going to jack up your, sharp, like longer inhale, less exhale. Now, the opposite of that's true. A short inhale and a long, slow exhale, we're going to feel a lot more relaxed. So if you were to do, 2 seconds in through your nose, 4 seconds out through your mouth for 5 reps, see how you feel. Really make that exhale as long as you can. How do you feel now?
Definitely feel more zen.
Yeah, so our breath is the fastest way to change your physiology. Everyone can do it. It's free. It takes about 30 seconds. There's a whole host of other breathwork techniques we can do. But the 2 simplest, easy ones, techniques that you can do right away, actually, there's 3. Let's just keep it at 2. Number 1 is box breathing. So box breathing is we're going to do 4-second inhale through our nose, 4-second pause, 4-second exhale through our mouth, 4-second pause, repeat. that is a great way to stimulate a parasympathetic nervous system and our vagus nerve. The second way, and I give this to people if they're really lazy and they're like, that's too long, is we can do 2 full breaths in through our nose, followed by 1 slow exhale. So it looks like this. We fully inhale through the nose. When you think you got nothing left, and then, and you can just try that once. When you think you got nothing left, breathe in more. And then, you can instantaneously feel zen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are some easy strategies. Now, obviously, breath work's not going to be a magic solution if you're not dealing with the 8 areas of your life and you've got infections and poor gut health and poor nutrition, poor sleep, all those things. But it is an easy way to recalibrate and bring yourself back if you do find that you're quite like highly wired, if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling stressed, if you didn't meet a deadline, if you got cut off in traffic, if you got a poor coffee order, if you got an email that was aggressive. Like, it's an easy way that you can just bring yourself back and center, so that your body can spend more time in that physiological state where it's healing versus breaking down. So box breathing for 3 minutes in the morning, help start your day zen and grounded. 3 minutes before you go to bed, help promote deep sleep. Make sure you're going to sleep in a parasympathetic state. You're going to have better deep sleep, better REM sleep. And why does that matter? Deep sleep is where we have physiological repair, so we repair our muscles, our tissues. So if you want to get stronger, have a nicer physique, happy days. And REM sleep is where our brain repairs. So if you want to have better energy, retain information, better memory, all those things, we want to have higher quality REM sleep. So all this stuff is so integrated. We can make it simple, or we can go quite deep and complex. But the simple thing we can do is learn how to breathe through our nose and breathe nice and calm, and spend as much of our day in parasympathetic mode as possible.
Yeah, amazing. And I do a lot of box breathing. Actually, I mentor a number of women, and we do a lot of box breathing. If I feel someone's really anxious, or, something's gone on in their day, it's like, okay, let's just husa for a minute, ground before we, do the next thing. And it takes a moment, and it is so transformative. Can't recommend breath work enough. And it's not going to solve all the problems, but it is going to help you in that moment. It's going to help you in that moment to really calm and ground and connect again before you go and tackle the next thing. I never understand, actually, I'm going to say, like you said about the coffee order, and I've never understood how someone can become so aggressive in moments like that. Like, I've just never been that person. And sure, something can annoy me, but I'm never, like, I just do not understand road rage. Does everyone have it, or is it just more in some people than in others?
Well, I mean, this is just my theory, but I'd say, I think there's obviously a psychological, emotional, personality profile to it, for sure. But I think also from experience, I can definitely say myself, and noticing this in a lot of clients as well, like physiologically speaking, you are a different person when you have a lot of these dysfunctions going on in your body, because it is going to dysregulate a lot of your neurotransmitters. So things like the dopamine, serotonin. There's another one called glutamate, which glutamate's a excitatory neurotransmitter, which basically means it like gets you more excited, which is good short term. But if you have too much glutamate, it can make you very fidgety, very anxious, very jittery. So best way I can explain it is like, when you're in those moods, you're just like, don't fucking touch me, and you're just a bit like jittery. Like very anxious. That can be a sign of excessive glutamate, which glutamate can be a byproduct of another neurotransmitter that doesn't get broken down properly when you have high levels of inflammation or gut problems. So coming back to the question, I guess, is like, it can be, obviously, you just maybe having a bad day, maybe, it's your personality, but it can also be your stress tolerance is a lot lower, and neurologically speaking, chemically speaking, you are a little bit more inclined to be a bit on edge and trigger happy. Because I was definitely like that when I went through my experience. I'd like, my girlfriend at the time, be like touching me, and I'd be like, yeah. I was like, oh, I'm not attracted to her anymore. But no, it was just a case of, there was obviously different biochemistry in my body at the time. And then when I dealt with everything, like my focus was better, my energy was better. I felt like myself again. So I think a lot of people don't realize that, and it's quite empowering, because they'd be like, fuck, there's something wrong with me. This is how I am. But I have this conversation with a lot of coaches in Gold Coast, especially because there's so many coaches in Gold Coast who do, obviously emotional release and like the psychological aspect of, this kind of stuff. So, life coaching, psychological coaching, all that stuff. And I'm like, it's very, very hard to deal with trauma and deal with all these neurological problems when like the thing that literally drives the health of your brain is in chaos right now. You would get significantly better results with all your psychological life coaching if you did the work simultaneously or prior on your physiological health or gut health.
Yeah.
Because ideally, we need both those things to happen. Otherwise, you just kind of go, all right, we're trying to release trauma here, but my brain's just like, I'm in chaos.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you find you tend to work a lot in that space now? I know you work with a lot of high performers. I know you've worked with, champions, Olympic athletes, like you've worked with those sorts of people. But do you find you work a lot in the business space now with, leaders and because of all of that?
Yeah, for sure. It's probably most of my demographic now. I still work with a lot of people who are just, everyday people and like experiencing health problems. That's like my first passion and probably the thing I'll die doing, just because I love it. But yeah, for sure, like high, athletes, high achievers, business owners, entrepreneurs, like people who don't necessarily have a health concern, but it's more of I just want to be dialed in. And they start to understand that relationship of like, well, if I want my business, my relationships, and my physical health to be the best it can be, then I've got to look into blood work and gut health and these things and start taking my nutrition supplementation and training seriously. But yeah, for sure. Because I mean, if you're a business owner, you understand it. You want to be productive as possible, have the most energy possible. If you're not productive and you're feeling that shit, your business, that's literally going to cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. So yeah, it probably makes sense to, invest a small portion of that into getting it sorted out and making sure you're dialed year round. So yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I think if you're not doing that as a business owner, you're definitely leaving a lot of uh, money, productivity, and growth on the table.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, talk to me a little bit about your business. What are you most excited for now? I know you've had a few changes over the years. You had a clinic, you closed the clinic. How are you working mostly with clients now, and what do you see for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind there, all positive. But
Yeah.
I guess yeah, I had the clinic back in Melbourne actually, and that was in 2019 to 2022, I believe. Moved up to Gold Coast, and that was a pretty amazing life change. Never going back. Like 20-degree days and going for an ocean swim in the middle of winter. That's pretty cool.
So, are
Um,
you from Melbourne originally?
yeah, so I'm from Melbourne. I studied down at RMIT in Melbourne. Yeah, did my PT degree, finished uni, opened a clinic, worked there for a few years, sold the clinic, decided I wanted a life change, moved up here, took a year off, worked online, decided I was bored online, opened up a clinic, did that for a year, decided I didn't like the clinic anymore.
The
And then
business roller coaster.
yeah, um, pretty much. I think it's one of those things where it's like, you probably have an idea of what you want to do, but I don't know if this resonates with you. I think I know things a lot earlier than I know things, but I'm very stubborn in the sense of like I've got to do it just to make sure and like put a nail in the coffin before I move on. Like before I opened the second clinic in Gold Coast, I was like, I'm pretty sure I don't like the traditional allied health model, but maybe it was because I didn't like the weather in Melbourne, or it was the demographic. Maybe it was all these reasons. So I'm going to start it in Gold Coast because it's going to be so much better because it's hot and everyone's fit. And it will just be 10 times better. And then like 4 weeks in, I was like, no, I hate the clinic. And I decided to call it on please. So
But I just needed to spend some more money and make some more commitments before I decided.
I just needed to sign a $30,000 lease to realize that I can confirm I don't like it.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um, so yeah, like I guess in terms of now, I've been online the better half of like 3 years. I just keep accidentally dipping my toe in and trying to go back to face because I think I'm going to change my mind. But I think I've finally come to the realization the last 6 months or so that yeah, it's not for me. I like working on big picture. I like working on root cause, and I find with that model, it can be very reactive, very short term. People have a problem, they come see you, they get relief. 2 weeks, then they come back, and then we go in a circle. So yeah, it just didn't really align with me, my values. So now I work predominantly online. I still have a small gym I can use if I need it, but yeah, I've worked predominantly online now from a health coaching capacity with people, got clients around Australia, around the world. So I think, yeah, that's exciting. And yeah, moving forward, I guess, in terms of plans would be more speaking gigs would be awesome, more presenting. I think,
I saw you're presenting Dreamfest.
yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, how exciting.
Yeah, so Dreamfest is not long away. I was about to someone asked me the other day, what are you presenting on? I'm like, oh, I'll figure it out in a few weeks. And they're like, it's in like 4 weeks. I was like, oh shit. I guess I'll talk about health.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be exciting. Yeah, Dreamfest is coming up. But yeah, I guess for me, moving forward, next 5, 10 years, the mission is really just to, it sounds corny, but like, impact as many people as possible. And I've come to the realization that I can't do that working one-on-one. So doing more speaking gigs, more presenting, launching a group program next month, which should be super exciting, and more workshops, more presenting, retreats, all the cool stuff, all the group
All
things
the
that
fun
are,
stuff.
yeah, all the things that can help, reach more people without burning myself out like I did 5 years ago.
Yeah, yep, so important. You got to practice what you preach.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I've been to the pits of burnout, so I can tell you what not to do.
Yes, yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing a bit about gut health and stress and those 8 areas which we'll cover off in the show notes. And yeah, I know our listeners will get something out of this. And yes, definitely book yourself in to see Dr. Daniel if you are having any concerns around energy levels, or that you're just not feeling like you're operating at your optimum level, because we need to, as business owners, to get the most out of our days and out of our businesses. So thank you so much for joining me today. I've really enjoyed it, and I know our listeners will too.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into this inspirational story. Lucky for you, the inspo doesn't stop here. We have an Inspired Founders Facebook community, a space created just for you to learn, listen, and ask questions from our inspired founders themselves. This unique community is designed to uplift and motivate you to take actions on your own stories and dreams. You'll find the link within our show notes. We can't wait to see you in there.
This is a Guide Your Light Network production, creating podcasts with purpose.